Have you ever been in love so deep, so undeniable that it felt like your souls had known each other forever, only to have the person you care about suddenly turn cold and distant? No fight, no reason, just silence. You check your messages. Nothing. You replay conversations searching for what went wrong. The connection felt real, didn't it? Here's the twist. What if the distance isn't because love has died, but because love has become too real, too intense, too overwhelming? What if ignoring you is not a rejection, but a subconscious defense? Today, we're diving into one of the most paradoxical truths about love, a truth that Carl Jung, the legendary Swiss psychiatrist, spent his life unraveling. He believed that love isn't just about connection and joy. It's also a mirror one that reflects not only our dreams, but also our fears, wounds, and the shadowy corners of who we are. And sometimes the reflection becomes too much to bear. In this video, we'll explore why people sometimes run when the bond becomes most real, and how understanding the unconscious side of love might change how you see every relationship you've ever had. Let's begin. Love isn't simple, it's a mirror. We like to think of love as soft, safe, and comforting, but in truth, love is one of the most intense forces we can experience. It doesn't just expose us to another person, it exposes us to ourselves. According to Carl Jung, love activates both our conscious and unconscious minds. The conscious mind sees the affection, the laughter, the shared memories. But the unconscious mind is stirred in deeper ways. It reacts to past wounds, buried insecurities, and unresolved fears that we often don't even know we carry. This is why love can be so disorienting. When we fall deeply in love, the other person becomes a mirror. They reflect not only the parts of ourselves we admire, our capacity for joy, generosity, and passion, but also the darker parts we'd rather avoid, our jealousy, our fear of abandonment, our need for control. It's no wonder that so many people start to pull away when love deepens. The unconscious mind love's silent architect. Jung believed the psyche is divided into two vast worlds, the conscious and the unconscious. The conscious is what we're aware of, our thoughts, decisions, and intentions. But the unconscious, it's the hidden part of ourselves where old traumas, repressed desires, and emotional patterns live. And this hidden realm often shapes our choices far more than we realize. We may think we know what we want in love, but our unconscious mind might be driven by completely different forces. Forces like the fear of being seen, the fear of losing control, or the deep belief that we are unworthy of love. This inner split creates tension. On one hand, we crave intimacy. On the other, we fear what it will reveal. And sometimes, without understanding why, people start to distance themselves, not because the love isn't real, but because it's too real. When love becomes too intimate to handle. Have you ever heard someone say, "It's not you, it's me"? As cliche as it sounds, Jung would say there's profound truth in those words. When someone feels emotionally exposed in a relationship, the unconscious may interpret it as a threat. Not a threat from the other person, but from what the relationship is awakening inside them. Love becomes the trigger, not the cause. It can unearth unresolved abandonment from childhood grief, from past breakups, or even subconscious beliefs like, "I don't deserve happiness." These wounds rise quietly like smoke under a closed door. And for some people, the easiest and most instinctive response is to pull away, not out of malice, but out of self-protection. Why some people distance themselves when love is strong? Imagine a person who has always had to be in control, their career, their emotions, their image, everything tightly managed. Now suddenly they fall deeply in love. And for the first time they feel out of control, vulnerable, exposed. Or think of someone who was abandoned by a parent or betrayed by a past lover. Now they're falling for you and it feels good. But somewhere inside a whisper says, "This won't last, they'll leave. Don't trust it." So what do? They begin to detach. Not because they want to hurt you, but because something deeper inside them is terrified of being hurt again. This distancing might look like ignoring texts, avoiding eye contact, or suddenly needing space. And to the other person, it feels cold, confusing, even cruel. But inside that person, a storm of fear, conflict, and vulnerability is raging. The hidden self that shapes love. Carl Jung taught that each of us has a shadow, a part of the unconscious where we store all the traits we've rejected or denied in ourselves. Anger, neediness, insecurity, even love itself, if we learn these were unacceptable, we bury them. But buried emotions don't vanish. They leak out, especially in relationships. Love has a way of stirring the shadow. It brings those hidden traits to the surface. Suddenly, someone who prides themselves on being independent feels needy. Someone who thought they had healed their trust issues feels paranoid. Someone who sees themselves as confident becomes insecure. When this shadow begins to stir, the natural response is fear. And that fear often leads to avoidance. Fear masquerading as disinterest. So what do we do when love makes us feel exposed? We pull away. We tell ourselves the other person is too intense. We say we're not ready. We lose interest or pretend to. But Jung would say that what's actually happening is a battle between the conscious desire to connect and the unconscious fear of intimacy. The closer the bond becomes, the more the fear intensifies. And for many, the only way to feel safe again is to create distance to regain control by disappearing, ignoring, or detaching. It's not rational, it's psychological, and often it's unconscious. Why connection triggers fear? Here's the paradox. The deeper the love, the more it threatens our inner defenses. Love requires vulnerability. And for people with deep wounds, especially those who never learned to feel safe in love, that vulnerability feels unbearable. They may want the relationship deeply, but fear losing themselves inside it. They may crave closeness, but fear becoming dependent. They may feel joy and fear how much it could hurt to lose it. And so they step back. Not because they've stopped caring, but because they care too much. What to do when someone you love pulls away? If someone you love suddenly becomes distant, your first instinct may be to blame yourself. Did I do something wrong? Did I come on too strong? But in many cases, the answer lies not in your actions, but in their internal experience. They may be battling fears that have nothing to do with you. And though their behavior hurts, it may actually be rooted in love, a love they don't yet know how to handle. So instead of reacting with panic, take a breath, give them space. Stay kind, but grounded. You can't heal their unconscious, but you can avoid becoming collateral damage in a war they're fighting within. When love awakens the shadow, Carl Jung taught that what we refuse to see in ourselves doesn't vanish. It shows up in our relationships. And the more intense the love, the more powerful that reflection becomes. So if someone pulls away when things get close, it may be their unconscious saying, "This is too much. I'm not ready to face myself." And the most loving thing you can do for them and for yourself is to respect that truth. Love, after all, is not just a feeling. It's a mirror. And not everyone is ready to see what it reflects. When they distance themselves, what does it really mean? So what does it mean when someone you love begins to pull away? At first, it may feel like a loss, like something sacred is slipping through your fingers. But in many cases, this distance isn't a declaration that love is gone. It's a sign that something far deeper is taking place inside the person who's pulling away. Often, they are engaged in an internal battle, a silent storm between the heart that wants to stay and the unconscious fears that scream, "Run." And in those moments, the worst thing we can do is chase. Trying to pull someone closer when they are retreating out of fear often creates more resistance, more withdrawal, more silence. What? Because true love isn't about clinging or forcing. It's about allowing space for the other person to face their inner conflict without feeling suffocated. Absence as a test and a defense mechanism. Here's a complex truth. Sometimes people distance themselves not because they want the relationship to end, but to see if it can survive the space. This kind of emotional distancing can be a subconscious test. They want to know, is this love strong enough to endure silence? Can it survive without constant attention, without constant proof? It may feel unfair, it may feel cruel, but for someone overwhelmed by love, distance can feel like the only way to regain control, to feel safe, to not get lost in something they don't yet know how to manage. But here's the paradox. Those who test love in this way are often not ready for it, because real love doesn't need tests. It doesn't need mind games or emotional push and pull. True love thrives on presence, trust, and the willingness to face vulnerability together. So when someone runs, the real question isn't just, will they come back, but will they come back with more self-awareness or continue the cycle of disappearance and return? And the only answer that matters is the one they show you through their actions. What if they never return? This is the question we're often too afraid to ask. What if the person I love walks away and never comes back? Here's a truth that's hard to accept but essential to healing. If love doesn't return, it wasn't a failure. It was a lesson. Real love doesn't beg. It doesn't cling out of fear. It allows. It trusts. And if someone chooses to walk away, then the distance was never a punishment. It was a revelation. We tend to view love as something to protect, to win, to hold on to at all costs. But authentic love isn't measured by its duration. It's measured by its depth and the growth it inspires within us. Some people don't come into our lives to stay. They come to awaken something, to mirror a wound, to stir a sleeping truth, to catalyze a transformation we never would have chosen on our own. Their absence, painful as it is, can teach us more than their presence ever could. The real invitation of love. So if you've been left ghosted or ignored, don't rush to fill the silence with blame or desperate questions. Instead, ask yourself, what is this awakening in me? Am I afraid of losing them or of sitting with the emptiness they have left behind? Was I using their presence to avoid facing something inside myself? Carl Jung taught that love doesn't just connect us to another. It reveals who we really are. It invites us to look into the mirror and see our shadow. The parts of ourselves we avoid, the wounds we carry, the fears we hide. And that's why love, even when it vanishes, is still a gift, because it brings us back to ourselves. Why they may not even know why they pulled away. There's one more layer to this story, one that most people overlook. Many people don't even know why they're pulling away. They feel overwhelmed, uncomfortable, distant, but they can't explain it. Why? Because their unconscious is in charge. They haven't yet done the inner work to understand the patterns they're repeating. They don't realize that love has triggered something ancient in them, a fear, a trauma, a belief they picked up long ago. Jung spoke about this through the concept of projection. Often people who withdraw are not running from you. They're running from an image of themselves that they see reflected in your love, an image they can't face, a truth they're not ready to hold. And this is why chasing rarely helps. Pushing for answers, demanding closure, or begging for attention only makes them run farther because their fear, not your love, is calling the shots. Will they ever come back? And if so, who will they be? Some do return, but they are never the same. Those who do the inner work, who face their shadow and sit with their fear, may come back with new eyes, with more maturity, with a deeper capacity to love without running. And only then can love become stable, safe, real. But not everyone is capable of that. Some stay lost. Some repeat their patterns with someone new, and you may never know why. But you will know this: you didn't lose them. They lost the chance to love you from a healed place. If it's true, it will find its way back. One is a force of transformation. It can heal, but it can also shake us to our core. It can build bridges, and it can expose the fractures we didn't know existed. So if someone has left you and you're searching for answers, stop looking outward. Start looking inward. Because as Jung said, the greatest love we can ever find is the one that helps us truly know ourselves. And if the love you experienced was real, if it was meant to grow, it won't need to be chased. It will find its way back. Have you ever experienced love that pulled away just when it felt most real? Share your story in the comments below. Your experience might help someone else understand their own. And remember, real love is not a chain. It's a path. Sometimes it walks beside us. Other times it drifts away. And often when it vanishes, it leaves behind a mirror. One that shows us not just who the other person is, but who we are becoming.